Good evening to everyone, or good morning, depending where you are in the world, I guess, when watching this live stream. So thank you so much for coming to watch this. Obviously, we have two of the titans in mining industry right now, Marathon and Cleanspark, reporting their quarterly results. For Marathon, it's Q1. For Cleanspark, it's Q2. So we'll take a look at both of those numbers coming up here. We'll also take a look at, obviously, Cleanspark buying 2 facilities in Wyoming. This obviously helps them get to the 32 exahash they want to get to by the end of the year, but there is still a gap that's in there that we have to obviously take into consideration. And we'll talk about all that, obviously, when it comes up here. But as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research. And while you know this, this is my full disclosure here. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And let's take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin charts, hash rate, hash price, all of those things here. And then we'll get into, obviously, Bitcoin and the miners today, how they did as well. But you can see here that the total hash rate on the network right now on the 7-day has continued to come down here. We are now at 578 exahash, right? So that's a good sign there. We're getting the older miners off. We also had the, the difficulty get adjusted, I believe, yesterday. It was down a little bit, about 6 or 7%, something like that, if I'm recalling from my memory here. And then if we look at the 30-day average, that's also been coming down here. So that is kind of what we expected to happen. Right, we weren't expecting a huge decrease, but we are seeing a decrease nonetheless, at least. With Bitcoin being up much higher, transaction fees, everything else adding into it, we knew that in the beginning it wasn't going to be a big decline in the network hash rate, but eventually things would probably cool off, and they are. And we're basically, what are we away? Like three weeks after the halving event right now, and we're now just starting to see, obviously, those effects happening now. Okay, so that's network hash rate. If we look at the Bitcoin fees per day, those have obviously also cooled off here. They're at 30.79 today on it. All right, we had this huge spike here after the halving event with the ordinals and runes and everything else. And then if we look at the hash price, excuse me, the hash price has actually been coming up here today, which is nice to see, obviously. And I think that's mainly because the difficulty was adjusted, and then that obviously makes the miners more profitable because of that. Okay, so that's gone up back up to $50 per petahash per day. Okay, so that's a good sign there for the miners as well. And let's take a look at Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners today. Bitcoin had a really good day today. It bounced off of our support here, which was at 61,000. Well, we fell a little bit below it, but we bounced off of it today, which was a good thing. And we are right now, Bitcoin was up 3.11%. It closed at $63,073, which is nice. We're down a little bit here on the new day on it, right? This is basically going into Friday here. Miners, for the most part, kind of mixed today. Some had a good day, some didn't have a good day. But we can see here that big gainer today was obviously CORZ. Obviously, CORZ reported their quarterly results yesterday. They had actually pretty good numbers there, and things look a lot rosier than people thought, right? So I've said before, I think it's going to take at least a quarter or two of financial results from CORZ to see how they're doing in order for people to kind of gain some trust back into the company after bankruptcy. And we're kind of seeing that today a little bit, obviously, with them being up 12% after their earnings yesterday. So that was good to see. Who else do we have here? Cypher was up 4.64%. Cleanspark was up just barely. It was up more. It was like up 4% during the day in the beginning. They kind of came back down a little bit here towards the end of the day. Let's see here. Hive was up 4.85%. Stronghold was up 4.36%. Wolf was up 1.29%. And then Marathon was actually down today 2.19%. And they were down in the after hours as well. And I think I'm guessing it's probably because of their quarterly results. But we'll take a look at those here next, I believe. I think that's everything else we have covered here. So tomorrow is obviously Friday. We'll see what happens tomorrow with the miners and where Bitcoin decides to go tomorrow. But let's get into our big stories. Obviously, Marathon and Cleanspark reports quarterly results. First one we're going to get into, obviously, is Marathon here. I'm not going to get into too deep into this. You guys can obviously read this on your own time. But just some little highlights here. So energized hash rate increased 142% to 27.8. They produced 2,811 BTC during Q1 numbers. Revenues increased 223% to 165.2 million. Net income increased 184% to 337.2 million. Right, so all good things here happening for them. And then, as we know, their quarter wasn't that great. They had problems with the facilities that they bought. And I listened into the conference call, and it looks like things are getting better there. I think it was Fred that mentioned that the transformers at those facilities were like Chinese brand, I guess, and they weren't rated for the load that they were going to be putting on them. And I think mainly because what they were doing in December, where they were running pretty much like 100%, that kind of overloaded those transformers, it looks like. At least that's what I'm guessing at. So they are getting those replaced, obviously, for better transformers, which is good to see. And their operations should be improving here going forward even more. So that's all good news there. One other thing that I heard from the conference call when I listened to it is that they don't need to build out anymore. To get to 50 exahash, they have all the infrastructure that they need without having to build out any additional megawatts. So that's great news there, right? Obviously, once they kick out some of the hosting customers that they have in there, which is obviously going to be happening in the next couple of quarters, they're going to be able to put more machines of their own into it. And the other part of it was, I heard, as far as miners are concerned, ASIC miners, that they're going to be putting in more of the ARDine machines. And somebody asked them about the delivery schedules. I think it was efficiency improvements, anything like that, that they could talk about ARDine. And obviously Fred said that he would basically refrain from that and let the management of ARDine speak to that effect. So we didn't get any information on that. Okay, they did state also that they're going to be putting in their own, what do they call it, 2PIC, right? Their immersion here, yeah, the 2PIC 700. They're going to be deploying those more in some of their facilities. They're also looking, obviously, to get into stranded energy, wasted energy, things like that, methane, other things like that, which is definitely interesting. But obviously, you're going to have probably smaller sites at those locations, I'm guessing. Maybe not, but we'll see. But they're definitely diversifying, which is great, I think, in the long term, because they are they're not concentrated right now. I mean, they have locations all over the place, so they're not really concentrated. But going into it in these smaller maybe units might be advantageous. We'll have to see, obviously, how that plays out in the long term. But right now, I think they're doing all the right things. They're trying to get, obviously, their operations back up online and everything else. So I'm pretty sure that's a good thing. I know it's a good thing, right? So they're obviously the biggest here out of the miners as far as hash rate is concerned, market cap, everything else. They just got to obviously improve their efficiencies at their operations, and they're going to do just fantastically going forward, I think. Okay, but that's the gist of it here on the information that we have here. Going into their numbers here, which I updated today. I didn't update the stock prices yet. I forgot to do that, so I'll get that done afterwards. But obviously, stock prices are pretty close to where they were from yesterday, not too far off. So we're not going to really get into that. We're going to really look at the quarterly revenues here, some other metrics here. But I'm using this based on their self-mining only, right? So they actually provided us with a couple different revenue streams that they have now, which I'm trying to understand those. I'm trying to get a better understanding of how those operate. And that will come with time, obviously. But we do have those as well. We'll get to those down below. So last 4 quarters revenue, Q1 came in at 122 million compared to 156 million. Obviously, that was a decrease there. That's based on their operations, right? They had trouble there, and they were operating at about 60-70% of their fleet, right? So that's the result of that. Even Bitcoin was going up in value. That's the reason for it. And then we are looking at the current quarter, about 105 million, right? We've passed the halving event. That's obviously going to happen here. It's going to greatly depend on, obviously, where the Bitcoin transaction fees go. Where does Bitcoin price go? So this is just an estimate right now. Then last 4 quarters, operating cost minus depreciation. That came down to 92.64 million. And it would have been actually higher, but I took out for this quarter there, and I'm going to continue doing that going forward. But I took out the share-based compensation in there as well from that. So that obviously lowered them there. And I think that number would probably be lower in the other months as well. But I just started doing that this time around because I actually looked up the data and I have the data now. Okay, cost of mine 1 Bitcoin minus depreciation. That seemed a little high for me, 28.69, but I think it was mainly because they were operating at like 60% of their uptime, or of their fleet, 60-70%. So I think that's why we're seeing that huge drive there. We also had the network hash rate increase as well. So I think that's based on that. And you can see obviously here by Bitcoin mine quarterly, I'm at 2,483. What did they report? 2,811, right? So I think they're reporting also for like the hosting side of things that they're a part of now, which they have hosting clients, everything else on top of that. But just for their self-mining from Marapool, I'm at 2,483. Okay, so definitely a decrease there, and that's kind of what I was going by here as well in Q4. Debt to equity, lower is better, obviously. Way low here. Balance sheet is as good as it can probably get here. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but overall, with all the other miners that are in the space, they're definitely got some of the best balance sheet numbers here. Current ratio, higher is obviously better, 23. Current ratio is now 23, so that's looking really good. Total current assets also increased to 1.6 billion here from 1 billion. Right, nice increase there. Obviously, that's beneficial because Bitcoin price has gone up with their HODL, so that's helping things out. They also own now infrastructure, which they didn't own in the past. They were asset light. They're more of a mix now. I think they own more, like 50% is now their self. They own their self infrastructure. Okay, total current liabilities 71 million. I mean, that's dropping the bucket for them right now. Okay, going down here to the numbers. We'll get into these here in a minute. But looking at the current assets here, we can see here that cash and cash equivalents stay pretty close to where they were, 324 million from 357. Let's see, digital currencies increased, basically doubled here, 1.2 billion from 639 million, right? And what else do we have? We had a nice decrease here, or increase in other receivables, 8.3. Deposits also increased to 40.8 from 7.2. And then, let's see here, prepaid expenses also increased to 32.5 from 23.5. And so total current assets right now are 1.6 billion compared to 1 billion. All right, huge increase there. And then other current assets, we're looking at a total of 2.9 billion here compared to 1.9. Let's see what we have. Big increases in property and equipment, 802 million now from 671. What else do we have here? Advances to vendors, 261 million, right? That's probably to Ardyne, I'm guessing. Investments, 112 million instead of 106 million. So that's an increase there as well. Long-term prepaids, 59 million from 27. Then long-term deposits came down to 21 million from 59. Goodwill, 30.8. That's a new one here we haven't seen in a while. Same with intangible asset at 21.6 million. And then, so total obviously came in at 1.316. And then combined, you got 2.9 billion here, roughly. So great balance sheet there. Liabilities and stockholder equity here. What do we have here? Accounts payable increased to 33 million from 11. That's not too bad for them. Accrued expenses also increased a little bit to 32 from 22. Derivative instrument now, we have that one that was 4.2 million. Operating lease went up to 1.3. And the total current liabilities increased to 71.1 million from 33 million, right? Basically doubled. A little bit more than doubled, but still, with their balance sheet, I'm not worried about that. Long-term liabilities went up to 408 from 341. So not a bad increase there. And then going down here, total liabilities and stockholder equity went up to 2.9 million from 1.9, basically a billion gain there. So that's huge there. And then revenues here. So this is where it gets interesting. I might pull this up even too. Let me see here. I'm going to pull up that sheet there. Maybe we'll take a look at it as well. Okay, so there's that. But now they have different revenue streams. They have mining operator transaction fees, okay, mining participant, and then hosting services. And then they have obviously their own mining operator, block rewards, other revenues. So this is like their self-mining here. I wish I would have named these things a little bit better. Obviously, hosting services is pretty self-explanatory. Mining participants, like, what is that? Mining operator, they've broken all this stuff out. But let's take a look at it here. So let's take a look at mining operator first here. Let's search it, mining operator, right? Mining operator, they go, okay. So mining operator, as an operator, the company provides transaction verification services to the transaction requester. In addition to the Bitcoin network, transaction verification services are an output of the company's ordinary activities. Therefore, the company views the transaction requester as a customer and recognizes the transaction fees as a revenue from contracts with customers under ASC 606. The Bitcoin network is not an entity such that it may not meet the definition of a customer. However, the company has concluded that it is appropriate to apply ASC 606 by analog by block rewards earned from the Bitcoin network. What? Oh, I wish I would have just said we're getting, like this is for their slipstream or something like that, right? This is slipstream revenue. I don't know what this is or what they're getting their Bitcoin from here. Let's see here. The company engaged in unrelated third-party mining enterprises, pool participants to contribute hash rate calculations. So why don't they? That should be like their self-mining if they're using third-party pools or something like that. Why are they calling it mining operator? Or are they having other customers use their pool? Which I don't think that's the case. So I'm a little baffled by this. I may have to reach out to them just to get some better explanations on this stuff. And then you got, let's see, mining operator, mining participant. Again, here, the company participates in third-party operating mining pools. When the company is a participant in a third-party operating mining pool, the company provides a service to perform hash calculations to the third-party pool operator. So this is basically having their own hash rate on another party, on another pool. The company considers third-party mining pool operators to be its customer under Topic 606, contract inception, and our enforceable right to a consideration begins when we commence providing hash calculation services to the mining pool operator. Each party of, well, why not just, this should be like under their self-mining, I would think, right? If you have your hash being put into a different pool, that's your self-mining there. Why break it down to mining participant? That seems a little strange to me. And then they go into talking about some of the mining pools here, FPPS mining pools, and you also have the PPS mining pools, success-based mining pools. They go into that. Hosting services, okay, this we understand. The company operates 2 Bitcoin mining sites, which were acquired on January 12th, right? Okay, so they got customers from there. So that makes sense. Hosting services are, yeah. But some of the other stuff is kind of like, what are you doing there? So I'll have to get some clarification on that. Maybe I'll reach out to their PR person to see what's going on with that stuff. Maybe get some better understanding of it going forward. Unless you guys already know what that is, then definitely let me know. Fill me in on here. Okay, but here's what we got. So mining operator block rewards and other revenue. So this is for the self-mining was 121.997. I had them at like 130 some odd million. So I'm wondering if I'm including maybe this number and this number together. That way it gets me to 130.98 million in revenue, which if you look at my numbers up here, that's kind of what I had here, 130.7, right? So that's pretty close. If I use the 120, I'm going to be way off on it based on what they were providing us and what I could figure out. So I'm guessing that's what those two numbers are, possibly for their self-mining. And then not sure where the other numbers come in here for mining participant. That's 13 million. So even if I include the 121 and the 13, okay, it gets a little bit closer. I'm still off by a couple million, but it's not as bad as being off by basically 10 million roughly. So yeah, I need to figure this stuff out so I can definitely track it the right way going forward, because right now I'm a little bit confused by this. Okay, so that's that part of it. Cost of revenue, so these are my calculations here. This is what they reported costs and expenses. Cost of revenue for energy, hosting, and other, that came in at 71 million. Cost of revenue hosting services, so I'm guessing that's obviously for the hosting services here, or up here, right there. Cost of revenue is depreciation and amortization, so they actually broke that out like they have in the past, so that's good there. And then I'm calculating here what those cost of revenue, energy, hosting, and other is, what the percentage is. Okay, so we kind of can figure things out from there, so that's not too bad. Going down here, general administrative expense was 73.31 million. That's huge, right? That included obviously a boatload of share-based compensation in there compared to the 39 million that they had in Q4 here, right? Almost double. That is just crazy. I know that they obviously have more people now, but giving out, and we'll take a look at down below what they're actually giving out as far as share-based compensation is concerned, but that's huge. Okay, so keep that in mind there. Realized and unrealized gains. So this is obviously what they realized gains from Bitcoin HODL, right? 488 million here. It's huge. That obviously helped them out tremendously. And then we have new categories here as well. Change in fair value of derivatives. That was negative 15 million. Early termination expenses, 22 million. So I think that's from them basically kicking Hot 8 out. Potentially maybe some other hosting customers, maybe part of that as well. Amortization and intangible assets was negative 2.9 million. Research and development was negative 2.4 million on that side of things, okay? So that's a new one there as well that we haven't had before. Going down here, so total operating expenses was 372 million positive. And that's because we had the FASB change here as well, so that's how that came out to be. That's obviously better than they had in Q4, which was about 245 million. Let's see what else I have here. Gain on investments, 5.2 million, sorry. That's a new one there. We also had a decrease here on loss on hedge and instruments. That one's about the same, or double from where it was, triple actually because that was negative. What else did we have? Interest income went down to 1.2 million from 10 million, so that's good there, or that was for the year. So it stayed about the same here. Going down to operating income loss or gain, 375 million compared to 82.7 million. Right, huge improvement there. And then Total other income expenses, 38 million. Not sure what that all included, but that's obviously double from where they were in Q4 as well. So overall, looking at the numbers here, we can see that they had a net loss or net gain of 337 million compared to 66 million. That was obviously mainly driven by the FASB rules and the Bitcoin that they had on the balance sheet. So net loss attributable to common share stockholders, the same thing. And then they obviously had $1.30 here for their EPS for basic and $1.26 for the diluted. So it's obviously better than it was in Q4 here. That's kind of calculated there. So that's good, right? But then when we look at actually taking out some of the FASB rules just to see how they did without those, and things get a little bit more interesting. So without FASB and depreciation, if I just take that number here, take out the Bitcoin that they had, the 488 million, right? Take that out of that number, we're down to 73 million negative. Then I looked at their SG&A without stock-based compensation. So their SG&A, so that was only 21 million instead of the 77 million they reported. Stock-based compensation came in at 51.9 million. Wow, that's a lot. All right, I think most of you guys here are not big fans of that high stock-based compensation for any of the miners. I know I'm not, right? It's obviously not cash-based, it's stock-based, but it's basically dilution on the shareholders, enriching other people, right? Obviously, you want to have good talent and everything else, but that seems, I don't know, to me that seems a little bit excessive. Okay, but that's obviously what it came out to be. And then we look at, without FSB and depreciation and stock-based compensation, that would mean that they lost about 21 million here from operations in the quarter if it wasn't for their FSB, okay? And we'll look at that also for Cleanspark here at the end as well. And that's something I'm going to be doing going forward, is looking at these kind of numbers without the FASB for all the miners that have any kind of HODL position that can take advantage of FASB rules for Bitcoin HODL, okay? So what's the outcome here? I mean, outcome is obviously they're doing the right things. They're growing. They're obviously improving their operations as well. So for that reason, and then obviously them getting to 50x by the end of this year as well, they have the infrastructure to do that. They will definitely do very, very well going forward, right? Obviously, they're at like $20 right now. I think they can definitely fetch much, much higher than where they are right now, especially if Bitcoin price goes up in value, okay? Big things, obviously, we'd like to see is basically the stock-based compensation not be as high, but they hired on more people. They got more people on. They got to obviously reward those people. So it's, I'll leave it at that. All right. So they're doing the right things, I think, going forward. And we'll just have to see how they execute on all those plans that they do have. So, yeah, that's it. We'll get into questions, obviously, in a minute here. But let's get into our next one here, which is going to be on Cleanspark. And let me see here. So first we'll get into, obviously, them buying sites. So Cleanspark to acquire 75 megawatts of Bitcoin mining sites in Wyoming for 18.75 million. I calculated it came out to be like, I think, 250,000 per megawatt that they're paying there. But I think I was listening to the conference call as well. I think they have to add some transformers to those sites. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I was listening to them and I was also doing other things, so I might have misheard that. But they obviously have 75 megawatts that they're going to be purchasing, and they can add another, I think, 50 or 55 megawatts. Yeah, 55 additional here to it. So here's the news. Today announced it has entered into a definitive agreements to acquire 2 Bitcoin mining locations in Wyoming with 75 megawatts of available power for cash payment of 18.75 million. The agreement is anticipated to close in 45 days, and the sites are expected to add over 4 exahash per second once fully operational. The company plans to break ground on the new facilities shortly after closing. So I don't know if, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm thinking that they have to get infrastructure built out in there a little bit, right? Which might not be a bad deal if they want to get to the 75 megawatts, but obviously it's going to take time. So I think I heard them say 120 days potentially from now where they might start getting things installed there, because it's going to take about 45 days for them to close on it, and then obviously to build out. And I think they're also doing a feasibility study on the electrical grid there to see if they can get the 55 megawatts additional, which obviously might take some time. We don't know how long that's going to take there. And then they can obviously install more. So we're looking probably towards the end of the year if they can get to the 70, get the additional 7 exahash added in there. But here it is. The company plans to deploy a combination of S21s and 21 Pros, the most powerful and efficient generation of Bitcoin mining machines, from orders placed and fully funded earlier this year. The agreement includes the potential to expand the sites by an additional 55 megawatts. Combined, the two facilities would add over 7 exahash to CleanSpark's hash rate as the company continues its path of sustained progress towards 50 exahash. Okay, so this is great news, right? This is something that we've been waiting for, obviously, for them to report that they are buying more sites. The good news is, obviously, they can probably get the 4 exahash something installed within probably a couple months, right? That'll get them to about 24 exahash. They want to get to 32 exahash by the end of the year. That leaves them with about 8 exahash left. If they can expand the facility by another 55 megawatts, at that point we're at 27 exahash, then they would need about another 5 exahash of facilities someplace to buy and obviously grow into those, right? To meet their goals of 32 exahash by the end of the year. It seems like that is more doable now than it was just yesterday, right? Yesterday they needed 12 exahash to buy infrastructure for. Now it's less. So maybe we'll get another report sometime in the road, down maybe next month, 2-3 months, whatever it might be, that they're buying other facilities as well to get to the 32 exahash. They obviously have machines in place to get to 50 exahash. So it'd be interesting to see if they can actually surpass the 32 exahash potentially this year. But obviously this is good news here. Okay. Next here, let's take a look at obviously their quarterly results here. And they were actually pretty good. Down here I did highlight some of the main things here. So the company increased its quarterly revenues to 111.8 million. Net income for the 3 months ended March 31st, 2024 was 126.7 million. And then adjusted EBITDA increased to 181.8 million. All right, so all good things there. Assets, cash 323 million on hand. Bitcoin 358 million on hand. Total current assets 687 million. Total assets of 1.54 billion. All right, so they're about about a third of the assets or current assets as Marathon has, right? But Marathon's obviously much larger, and they've been doing this for longer than CleanSpark has been doing. But all in all, things are looking really good here. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers that I have here for CleanSpark as well, and we'll get into. I'm going to start up here. There we go. So last 4 quarters revenue has been increasing nicely here, which is what we wanted to see, 111.8 million. This current quarter that we're in, I'm estimating 99.8 million. Things will change, obviously, depending where the network hash rate goes, where Bitcoin price goes, what they install in the next couple months as well. So that's going to possibly change here. Last 4 quarter operating costs minus depreciation did increase to 60.14. That's to be expected because they obviously installed more machines, so that should go up. So that's in line with what we were expecting. Cost to mine 1 Bitcoin minus depreciation came in at 16.89 thousand for them. Obviously an increase here. Network hash rate has increased. That's the reason for it. Bitcoin mine quarterly has actually, they slightly beat out their Q1 numbers of 2019. They got 2031 here, so just slightly beat that, which is nice to see as well. Debt to equity, lower is better, obviously. That's down to 0.05. So really healthy there. Current ratio higher is better, 12.4 now. Really good there. That has been increasing as well, which is what we wanted to see. Total current assets, huge increase here, obviously 687 million from 181 million. And then total current liabilities is at 55 million. So obviously not a concern there that they have any issues paying their current liabilities. Okay, we'll get back into these numbers here in a second. And I think I missed on Marathon. I did. So we'll get back to this with Marathon numbers there once I'm done with this one. But here's what we do have. Cash and cash equivalents increased to 323 million from 48 million. Obviously, they pulled on the 500 million ATM in that quarter. That definitely helped them out tremendously here. Inventory, 991,000. That's up from 732,000. Prepaid expenses went up to 4.1 from 2.9. Digital currency value rate went up 357 million from 126 million. So that's great there. What else do we have here? That was kind of interesting. Everything else stayed the same here. Total current assets, 687 from 181. Nice, huge increase, right? Property equipment went up a little bit here to 670 million. What else did? Intangible assets went down to 3.7. Deposits of mining equipment, 161 million. So that's obviously, I don't know what that would actually get them to. I think that would get them to probably 32 exahash, potentially. Other long-term assets, 5.7. And then goodwill of 8 stayed the same here. And then obviously total assets at 1.5 billion compared to 862. So that's almost a double there, almost. So that's looking really good there. Healthy balance sheet. That's great. Current liabilities here, that accounts payable increased to 43 million from 33 million. Down here, dividends payable. I'm looking at that. Why are they paying dividends 2.8? I own shares in Cleanspark. I didn't get any dividends. So I got to figure out what that is for. But that's obviously up about, that's up, what is that, almost 5x or so. On that, current liabilities, actually is about the same. Total current liabilities, 55 million from 42 million, not a big increase, not that bad. Total liabilities actually increased to 74 from 52, so that's fine there. Total liabilities and stockholder equity, that increased to 1.5 billion from 862. Nice jump there as well. Kind of similar to Marathon as well. And then here we go. Revenues here, this is easy, 119.79. I had them at, I think I was pretty close to it. I had them at 111.6. I was off by 0.13%. I'll take it. That was really good. Anytime I'm that close, I'll take it. Going down here to cost of revenue, that obviously increased to 34.2 million from 28 million. Professional fees increased to 2.2 from 1.5. Payroll expenses increased to 16.8 from 15.3. And their payroll expenses also include, I think it's like 9 million in stock-based compensation in there. We'll take a look at that down below. General administrative expenses, 6.8 from 5, so obviously an increase there. And then we had a gain on disposable assets of 1.6 million compared to 677,000. And then gain on fair value of Bitcoin, that increased 119 million for them in the quarter of their HODL, basically what they had. What else do we have here? Depreciation was 32 million. Cost of revenue was basically negative 25 million based on this number here. So they're positive on that. Going down here, other income, let's see here, other expenses. Everything else is pretty much the same here, not much change here. Interest income did increase to 2.6 million from 586. And then income loss before income taxes was 138 million, so that's a gain compared to a 27 million here in Q1, which was obviously Q4 for the majority of us. Going down here, what else do we have here? Income tax expense, 11.5 million, so that's obviously a pretty sizable increase there from the 1.4 million that they had the prior quarter. Preferred stock dividends, again, I'm not sure where those are coming in from. But net loss gain was 123 million compared to 25 million. Obviously really good there. Basic EPS per share was 59 cents. Diluted was 58 cents. And then again, looking at their numbers here, without the FSB and depreciation, they came in at 36.4 million in the positive, it looks like. And double check my numbers here because I was doing this kind of quick and I think I got the gist of it here. But basically what I did was I took the net loss, which was this number up here, plus I added the gain here into it, and I took out the depreciation and amortization as well. Okay, so I think that works out correctly. Employee wages without stock-based compensation was only 7 million, right? They had stock-based compensation of 9.7 million. Still, right, not as bad as Marathon's was. Marathon's was way up there, but still, that's quite a bit there. And then without the FASB and depreciation, stock-based compensation, looks like they were still 26 million in the positive, potentially, on that quarter. So all in all, pretty good there. Going over here to these numbers up top, if we look at their cost to mine, we already talked about that. Debt to equity cost, talked about that. Current ratio, book value of equity came in at 1.4 billion. Price to book ratio, 2.5. Enterprise value, 3.4 billion. EBITDA came in at 169 million. EV to EBITDA 20.5, and then debt to EBITDA 0.44. And then revenue, obviously what it was, general administrative compensation, that obviously brought them down to a percentage of 21% based on this. And I am including, what am I including in that? Payroll expenses, which obviously includes stock-based compensation as well, and then general administrative expenses in that as well. So it probably would bring them down even more if we take out the stock-based compensation, right? 21%, that's not bad. And then this just looks at their actual numbers for general administrative. If we just include those numbers, that comes in at 6.1%. So that's obviously trending in the right direction. It's going down here, which is obviously what we want to see. Shares did increase by about 15% here prior quarter. They had 198 million. Now they have 227 million. So that's an increase of 15% for that. So with Cleanspark, they're doing all the right things, obviously. They're kind of one of the darlings here, obviously, along with Marathon in this space, growing forward, getting to 32 exahash, huge goals going forward, getting to 50 exahash eventually. Now that they bought 2 sites, that gets them closer. So they're just doing all the right things, right? They've had some hiccups here with the investors, I think, in the past. Obviously, we've talked about those here at length. So going forward, I think things will be much better for them and for Marathon and for others as well, Riot and everybody else that's growing nicely here, as long as Bitcoin starts going up in value, right? That's the main thing that's kind of holding these stocks back right now, at least. Okay, but no qualms from me, at least for Cleanspark right now. Need to continue to see them building out their infrastructure, keeping the costs down as much as they can, obviously. And yeah, that's basically it. So we'll get into the Q&A here shortly, but we're going to get into Marathon really quick because I forgot to go through their numbers too. So here's Marathon's numbers here. Debt to equity, we covered that. Custom mine went Bitcoin minus depreciation. I got him at 28, right? And that's, I'm using the Bitcoin mine. And maybe I should be using the higher Bitcoin number that they reported. I'll look into this, but that's obviously seems pretty high here. But maybe that's based on their obviously operational uptime as well. Maybe that contributed to it. Let's see. Covered that book value of equity, 2.4 million here. Price to book ratio, 2.17. Enterprise value, 4.5. EBITDA, 415 million. EV to EBITDA, 11. Debt to EBITDA was 1.3. Revenue came in at 121. This is just for self-mining. Again, general administrative compensation was 73 million, and that's included 50 some odd million in stock-based compensation. So that was at 60%. That was way off here, obviously. And I think they had, obviously, if we look at Q4 numbers, they had 39 million here. They had stock-based compensation in there as well. That was at 25%, right? But they had better revenue at that point. So that's why I keep saying that scale a lot of times fixes a lot of the issues that we see here with some of these miners that have high expenses when it comes to their teams and stock-based compensation and all that things, okay? And then this, why am I getting 63? That shouldn't be that way. Well, I'm going back to, let's see here. I should be looking quarter over quarter, which should be only going back to, why am I going back to that one? That should be right there. Okay, only 1.9, 2% increase in number of shares. Not that bad for the quarter. Excuse me. Okay, so that is it on all of these guys here. Let's get into the Q&A side of things. Let's see what you guys think of all these guys. And we'll call it a day. So here's Q&A. Okay, all right. Let's see what we have here. Scott Richards, thank you so much for the super thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you. And let me see. Where am I at here? Okay. All right. Okay. Is Cleanspark still king? When it comes to like growth, efficiencies, operations, that side of thing, I think you can still probably call him king, right? Or at least right now. If Marathon fixes their issues with their operations and things like that, then at that point, Marathon could become the king, right? But based on the numbers that we're seeing here, at least right now, I think Cleanspark is kind of like the king as far as the growth, everything else. But, I mean, Marathon is the one to beat, obviously, if they can get their operations figured out. Let's see. Okay, on the earnings call, I believe they said that they had the transformers in stock. Okay, so well, that's good, right? So they can obviously get those things installed relatively quickly. And we're talking about Cleanspark here, obviously buying the 2 facilities in Wyoming. Let's see here. So were you surprised with the muted response from the market on the Cleanspark earnings? No, we've seen kind of muted responses here from other miners as well, right? It was obviously still good numbers from them. Right, but Bitcoin being down, I mean, Bitcoin's up a little bit today, so they did better in the morning, then they kind of came back down. And I wasn't expecting anything huge from them, actually, on that one. With the other miners, too. I think it's just the market that we're kind of in right now after the halving event. Even good news right now is kind of like muted. So that's kind of what I was expecting. Nothing really changed from that. I think eventually, as they get hash rate installed at their current facilities, if they have a Mississippi and else place, that will help out more so. And then obviously them buying more facilities to get to 32 exahash will help going forward. And if Bitcoin's pumping at that point, I think the stock is going to do fine. Let's see it. Scott, thank you so much again for the super thanks. Great job, especially in greetings from Germany. Greetings. You're probably in the morning there. Wow, you're probably like at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think. 4 or 5, something like that. Let's see. Hello, sir. Where can we see DMG and Annie if BTC hits 200,000? Well, for Annie, they got to survive this halving, first of all. We'll see if they can do that. For DMG, if Bitcoin hits 200,000, I mean, you're probably looking at least maybe, I would say 5 to 10x easily on them. They're obviously small, right? So maybe they won't get that much, but I would think you could still probably see at least 5x from them. Excuse me. I gotta tickle my throat. Thanks, Sebastian. Thought I was already subscribed. Not evidently not. Now appreciate your videos. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Let's see. Question: how many wins do you have in Warzone? You're talking about Call of Duty, I think. Gosh, I haven't played that in a while. I just don't have time to play anymore. I used to play a lot more. Any change to your price targets in Cleanspark after today's earnings? No, my target's still like $70 on the conservative side of things. They could definitely do much better going forward, but it all depends where Bitcoin price goes, where their infrastructure goes, build out, all that. Where do they actually get by the end of the year as far as exahash? That's all going to make a much bigger impact, I think, than the current numbers that we just saw from Q1. Right? Q1 was before the halving event. The more important numbers are going to be going forward after the halving event. Question: did Cleanspark mention when they will get the expansion of ops at Centerville, Dalton done? Well, you reach 20x by the end of June. Will they reach? I think the goal is still there for them to reach 20 by the end of June. I haven't heard any updates on it though. Yeah, but I think they've said before that their goal is still to reach 20x by the end of June. Do you see Bitcoin going to 40K like some other guys in the space? I hope it doesn't do that. I actually don't think so. I think we've probably kind of bottomed out here. I mean, we'll have to see, right? Anything's possible with Bitcoin. We get one bad news or something like that, and it could wick down relatively quickly in a couple hours down to that and then jump back up. So anything is possible with Bitcoin. I'm not going to say it's out of the question, but I don't think it's looking like it's going to do that, at least not right now. But we'll see. Hi, Sebastian. Timeline for Cleanspark to 50 exahash. Hank, I think that's going to probably, I think we would all love it if they could get to 50 exahash by the end of this year, right? But that's a lot of infrastructure that they would have to buy in order to do that. So I think sometime in 2025, possibly maybe by the end of the first half, if not obviously by the end of the second half, they could possibly do it. But it all depends on what they can buy in right now. And depending on what comes on the market that's distressed after this halving event, and now with Bitcoin price, or not Bitcoin price, network hash rate actually decreasing. We're obviously seeing miners jumping off the network. So we'll see. If we see BTC at 40K, would IREN and Bitfarms be able to survive? If it's for an extended period of time, at that point, if Bitcoin's at 40,000, you're going to have a lot of more network hash rate coming offline, which at that point is obviously going to lower the difficulty. With lowering of difficulty on the Bitcoin network, that's going to make the miners that are still operating that much more profitable at that point. Right, so I don't see a problem with them surviving even if Bitcoin stays at 40,000 for an extended period of time. They both have really good balance sheets right now, so I don't see a problem with that. Gerhard, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Yeah, so Wyoming's buys are very smart. They are a state that will never ban mining. They are a very red state. Yes. You have also, what is it, Senator Cynthia Loomis, I believe her name is. She's very pro-Bitcoin. So as long as she's in there, you're going to have definitely a strong supporter there. Let's see, Bitfarms still no CEO. Yeah, nothing on Bitfarms yet. Let's see, question: Marathon cutting up the revenues not related to creating a potential subsidiary structure to attract capital, non-recourse. I don't know. Yeah, that's the other thing that they mentioned, that they were obviously going to be doing different units within the company, right? I think like 3 units for different segments that they're working on. That's going to be interesting. I forgot to mention that. I just remember that. So that'll be interesting to see how all that gets reported then. Question: if Bitfarms achieves their mid-year 12 exahash goal and Bitcoin is still at 60, 70,000 levels, do you see the market finally beginning to price this correctly? 180 and 550 million seems super low. Yeah, I think if they can, I mean, they're what, 7 exahash right now. If they can get to 12, that's obviously 5 exahash of increase. I think the market will then possibly start to take notice, right? At that point, that they can actually do what they say they're going to do going forward. So I think that will obviously help going forward. And it also means that they're going to be mining more, being more profitable. So that should add all to the bottom line as well. That should be good. Let's see here. I'm trying to find it. Scott Richardson says, Sebash, my question is right above my super chat. Did I miss your super chat? Let me go back up. Oh, I already answered your question. So this is your question here, Scott. Were you surprised? I already talked about it. I was not really surprised by it because just in the market that we're in right now after the halving event. So I wasn't too surprised by it. If they really blew out the numbers and had much better numbers, at that point I probably would have been surprised. But the numbers that they provided were good. Even without the FSB rules, they came in still positive, which was good to see. But yeah, right. But those were also Q1 numbers, which, like I said before, those were before the halving event. I think investors are more curious on how they're going to do, obviously, after the halving event where revenue is down so much. Okay, I still don't buy the narrative that miners are leveraged long on BTC, especially when they can dilute shares. I just buy BTC. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can do that definitely. But time will tell, obviously. In the past, the miners have outperformed Bitcoin tremendously. We saw that with Marathon, Riot, others as well last cycle. The same we're seeing right now. Cleanspark's already have been outperforming Bitcoin over the last 52 weeks or so. So we'll see. Let's see here. Marathon consistently has low mining efficiency and high cost per coin for the last 3 years and are always told they are getting straightened out. How many years do we need to wait before they fix them? I think they're going to finally fix it. I think they've made obviously their mistakes in the past. Were asset light, so they were reliant on hosting providers. That obviously didn't help things. They were a little over exuberant on their timelines as far as when they could get to 23 exahash, right? That kind of kicked them in the butt a little bit. But I think they learned a lot of lessons through that process. That's why they're buying infrastructure now. They're not as asset light as they were before. Because if you control your own infrastructure, you control your own destiny basically at that point, right? You have nobody else to blame but yourself, right? But they bought obviously infrastructure that had bad transformers in that. So I'll give them a break on that, right? They didn't know those transformers were going to go out. But it is what it is. They're learning the lessons. They're getting kind of kicked in the butt a little bit because of it. But I think going forward, they will do much better. At least that's my hope is, right? If they don't learn by those mistakes and they continue to do the same thing, well, it's on them. Why do you think BTC will hit 100 by the end of the year? Just based on the historical events that we've seen with Bitcoin and the halving events. So I'm just kind of basing it on that. I mean, we already hit 72,000, 73,000 just a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago. At this point, I mean, that's only, what is that going to be? Like a 50% increase, right? That's not bad. I mean, we can see Bitcoin sometimes going 10, 15% in one day, right? All we need is a couple of those days and you're at 100,000 without a problem. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about it. And it might be actually low. Some are saying that we could be 150,000 by the end of the year. So we'll see. As long as we're going up, I don't care if it takes us a little bit longer to get to 100,000, but as long as Bitcoin price is going up over the long term, I'll be happy. When can we start seeing Bitcoin starting to moving up? It is staying in the very tight price range. Your opinion? We've seen this before. We've seen it after the halving events in the past as well. Bitcoin kind of stays a little stagnant, a little sideways action going on there, trying to get the feelings out, trying to figure out what's going on. And then eventually, a couple weeks, a couple months, it starting to rally. And then usually we have really good rallies like in the fall or something like that. That's kind of what we've seen, pretty good rallies at that point. That's kind of what I'm expecting as well, right? We're still early. Bitcoin typically doesn't peak until after the halving event, like 12 to 18 months out, right? So we're only 3 weeks into the halving event. Don't expect to be at 150, 200,000 within the next month, right? You gotta be patient. Question: do you think Cleanspark will pop tomorrow? Don't know. If it does, it's great, right? I'm in this for the long run, so I'm not day trading this. If you guys are, obviously, that makes a big difference for you guys. But I'm still in this in the long run. I'm still in this for the next 12 months, potentially, if not longer. So be patient, like I keep saying. Are you still bullish on Bitfarms? They are facing a leadership crisis. Yes, I'm still bullish on Bitfarms. They have the growth plans in place. They also have Ben there, right? Ben is, like an OG there. So as long as Ben's there and they have the plans in place, they have the infrastructure that's been bought. They're building out. They bought the miners as well. I think they're going to do very, very well going forward. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Question: would you be more likely to buy Cypher, BitDigital, or CORZ? Ooh, I would have. Wow, that's a tough question. So then you're looking. I always like to look at growth, right? Growth efficiencies, things like that. Cypher has some growth, obviously, this year to like 9.7 exahash by the end of the year. So that's not much growth there for them. BitDigital is going to double their hash rate potentially to like 6 exahash, if not maybe more. But they also have the AI side of the business, which we don't know how profitable that is. And then you got CORZ. CORZ obviously just came out of bankruptcy. They're doing much better now. And they're looking to grow as well into the AI space and things like that. It would be a tough one right there. I think based on just how beaten down CORZ is, I think maybe I'd go into Core if that was the case. Cypher is much better priced right now compared to CORZ is, and BitDigital, I just don't know about their AI right now, right? Need to see what the profitability is. I think we're going to be reporting next week their earnings. So we'll take a look at those numbers there. That's really interesting. That's what I'm really looking forward to there. Let's see. Assuming a peak in the fourth quarter 2025, when should miners stop or slow down exahash build out? Never. You can't stop building out because if you're not building out, somebody else, somebody else is building out at that point. You want kind of like steady growth, right? The thing here is to get to scale with megawatts. If you can get to scale with megawatts to like 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatts, or something like that, at most, I would think you can go higher if you want to. But at that point, you can just use the infrastructure that you already have in place, swap out the older miners for the latest generation miners, and you're going to be increasing your basically efficiencies by 100% basically each time you do that. So there's really no need to go and buy more infrastructure if you already have 1 to 2 gigawatts of power. If you're at 50 exahash, let's just say there, new miners come online where they're 300 terahash per miner or 400 terahash per miner. Well, you can just basically double your hash rate at that point just by swapping out machines. So I think they're going to continue to keep growing. You're going to have to continue to keep growing because you're always going to have new entrants that are going to try and take your take your spot. So it's one of those things where it's always like a dog chasing its tail. You're always going to be having to improve, get better on that. The only way that's going to change is if we don't have the halving cycles and Bitcoin stays flat for a long period of time, right? If that happens, then you kind of get to an equilibrium where it doesn't really make sense for you to get the most efficient miners or to build out further or things like that because the economics there aren't really there. I mean, you could still possibly build out or get newer machines at that point to be a little bit more efficient than your peers are, but you're not maybe going to see that type of huge growth that we've seen here in the past. Let's see here. Did Cleanspark get a good price on the Wyoming site or did they pay a premium? No, it seems like they got a pretty good price on it. Based on my calculations, it looks like they paid about $250,000 per megawatt. So that's actually pretty good, right? I think they were paying 300-some thousand in Mississippi, so that's actually pretty good. Let's see. Scott, thank you again for the super chat. Appreciate it. Do you think BitDigital's AI is already priced in as revenues are next week and post having their BTC all-in cost profit is 93,000 BTC? Do you still think Bit is undervalued? If so, what do you value them at? Let me see what are the numbers that I have for it. Right, I don't have the AI side of things as far as what their value is on that or what the profits are, what the revenue. Well, we know what the revenue is. Revenue is about 50 million, but what is the profits on it? That's the important question here. So if I look at BitDigital right now, I'm valuing mostly on just their self-mining here. Actually, it is on their self-mining here. And even at that point, I have them at right now between $4.63 to $6.94. They're at $2.17, right? They're undervalued right now from where they should be. If we look at their machines here, they do have some of the older generation miners, the Ent miners, 100 terahash miners. They got some 88s. I'm guessing those are going to be probably getting plugged off or unplugged. And they got some 103 terahash, and they're getting some newer miners as well, 120, 111. But they definitely will need to upgrade to the newer generation miners, especially as they grow to 6 exahash. They're currently at about 2.8, 3 exahash, something like that. They will have to do that going forward as well. But that should obviously help them out there. Okay. Question: what do you think will be the cause of the next major upward move on Bitcoin? I think it's just continued adoption. We're seeing Hong Kong just obviously came in. That wasn't as good as we thought. I think that was a little bit maybe priced in a little bit there. We had kind of a sell the news event. Then we got Singapore getting online as well with an ETF. What else do we have? We have, I think, banks looking to get into Bitcoin on their balance sheet as well, right? So it's just continued adoption. You got also Block buying Bitcoin each month now. So you're going to have this current increase in demand going forward, and the supply is what it is right now, 450 Bitcoin per day, right? So there's not enough Bitcoins, like they keep saying. There's 21 million Bitcoins, and in theory, there's maybe only about 13 million or something like that are available, really, if people that have those wanted to sell. And you got a heck of a lot more millionaires out there, and you got pension funds, and you got everything else that wants a piece of Bitcoin here eventually. So that's going to drive Bitcoin price going up forward. Thank you for letting me know. I'll see what I can do on this. Still get ads on the live stream. Is it when you come into the live stream, or is it like in the middle of the live stream while you're already watching it? I'd like to know that. And maybe I can turn off the middle ones or something like that. Only use the bottom ones, the end ones, or the beginning ones and the end ones. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. Also, you're getting this information for free. A little ad doesn't hurt. It helps me out. Be nice. Okay. Let's see. Can Riot and Mara make new all-time highs by the end of this year? Not by the end of this year. I think when Bitcoin gets close to the all-time high, I think at that point they will. This year, even Bitcoin gets to 100,000, we're looking at only a 50% increase in that. Yeah, those guys are not going to be making their new all-time highs anytime soon. Until Bitcoin gets to like 150, 200,000 at that point, yes, I think they will make new all-time highs. But it also depends. Can they actually fix their operations? That goes both for Marathon and Riot. So a lot of dependent on that. If BTC hits 150,000 by November, would you still sell that earlier or hold through 2025? Okay. So if it gets to 150,000 by November, that would be fantastic. Now, the question is, where do my stocks get to, right? Cleanspark, Bitfarms, IREN. If Cleanspark gets up to $100 or something like that, I may take a pretty sizable chunk off the table at that point. That would get me, 7 figures return on Cleanspark. Bitfarms, if that gets to like $10, $15, I may also take off a pretty nice sizable chunk at that point. IREN, I have a small amount right now. IREN, I'd probably hold on to that one, see where that one goes. But that would kind of be the plan, is just to see where things end up going forward, take a lot of profits off the table, and then see where things go, right? So what do you think about Bitcoin difficulty now? It's obviously come down here, right? We're seeing the network hash rate come down, so that's the reason why difficulty is coming down. And we'll see if this continues going forward. Obviously, hash price has increased. We talked about that in the beginning of the video as well. So I think that's a good thing, right? Especially older generation miners are coming offline. Difficulty is going to decrease. The miners that are profitable still now, that are mining, will get better revenue from that as a result. Hey, any thoughts on Chainlink? I don't cover altcoins or anything like that, so I don't have any thoughts on that one. Already covered that one. Yes, I would take profits. Possibly I wouldn't sell everything, but I would definitely take profits. Question, do you have a favorite miner that is involved in AI? Well, I guess it would be IREN, right? That I already have some shares in, but not a lot. And they're getting to the A side of things as well. So that would probably be the one, I guess, right now. If BTC goes to 100,000 BTC, or BitDigital should hopefully stay above 3. Yeah, I would think so. Probably be closer to maybe $5 or $6 at that point. Miners are pumping after hours, not even though BTC is red. Why does this keep happening? It's so random. Yeah, I mean, it's people basically betting on the miners. Sometimes the miners front run Bitcoin, sometimes they don't, but they also front run Bitcoin to the upside, and they also can do it to the downside as well. So it's just one of those things. Sometimes doesn't make any sense, but on the short time frame, if you look at the daily, the hourly, the 4 hours charts or something like that, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But if you look at the longer time frame, that's kind of what I really look at, and that makes a little bit more sense, right? But in the daily stuff, it's going to be volatile. Miners are going to be volatile. There's no sense, or you can't really make any sense out of it. I don't understand why people in this section expect Seb to be their pro manager to do your own due diligence. Yeah, I mean, I can help you guys out with what I see happening and things like that, but you definitely have to do your own due diligence and use a lot of data that's out there from me, from others, from Anthony. You got a bunch of great guys on Twitter as well that have a lot of data pumping out right now, which is great to see as well. So use all those sources, right? Don't use just one source. Let's see here. Did you see Trump talking about Bitcoin? I did see that. I'm not going to make any comments on it. I'm not going to get political here, but I did see that. Which Bitcoin price would be deadly for Bitfarms and IREN, or would nothing affect them as network hash rate comes down in tandem? I mean, always there's a delay in the network hash rate. Well, in the difficulty at least, right? There's at least possibly a 2-week delay from when network hash rate start coming down, and then when the difficulty drops down. But I think it would have to be like, wow. It would all depend. Yeah. I mean, it could definitely hurt, but at a certain point, I would have to run the numbers on it, because that's an interesting theory there. I'll run some numbers maybe over this weekend to take a look at, because that's actually kind of interesting what that could possibly look like. So if I have any information for you guys, I'll do it definitely next week. Okay. Jen, thank you so much for letting me know. That's in the middle of the stream. Okay, we'll see what we can do about that. Especially, do you sell covered call options with minor stocks you own? No, I don't. I sleep better at night. I just buy stocks and hold them, and I sleep very well at night that way. Even though what was it, just a year ago? What was it, a year ago, 2023? Things were actually looking up. So about, I guess you could say 2 years ago, when things were coming down in 2022, being down like 60-80% on two of the miners, CleanSpark and Bitfarms. That wasn't a great feeling, but I'm like, this is a longer time frame. Be patient. Dollar cost averaging as best you can, and that's kind of what I did, and it's worked out so far. Let's see. Seb, what do you think happened to Satoshi? I don't know. I mean, if you read the story about it, right, he was less and less involved with the Bitcoin community or on the chats and everything else over time. I don't know. I don't know whether he was maybe ill at some point, maybe that. I have no idea what happened there, but it's definitely interesting, right? Somebody giving up all of this. I don't know if he was able to foretell what was going to happen with the Bitcoin price, but man, giving up all of those coins and everything else, that was something. So we'll see. Maybe one of these days we'll find out. I don't know. Let's see. Question. Bankrupt one, marry one, the stocks for life and sell one. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see. So bankrupt one. Bankrupt. Okay. Well, I mean, out of Mara, CleanSpark, and IREN, none of them is going to go bankrupt. Marry one of the stocks. I guess that would be CleanSpark, I guess. And sell one. I guess I only own IREN then, so I would have to sell IREN at that point. When we talk about miners involved with AI, does it mean that it's run by AI or they have another division of the company? And when we talk about AI with companies, it's more so another segment of revenue for them. So AI would be like GPUs and H100s from NVIDIA for running AI compute, which would obviously be for like the large language models, LLMs, and things like that. So different side of things. Let's see. Question: who is the most crypto pro presidential candidate? Was that maybe Kennedy, I think? Right? I think it might be Kennedy at that point. Let's see. Do you think IREN will secure a long-term HPC contract after the second 3-month term? Is HPC a game changer for some of these guys? I don't know. We had Dan from IREN on the Spaces last week, on Twitter Spaces, or X Spaces. He said that's more beneficial for them to have short-term contracts, but obviously there's uncertainty there because they can actually generate more revenue from those than they can from long-term contracts, but there's also benefits to having long-term contracts because at that point you can have debt that you can basically put on those longer-term contracts, I guess, right? Because if you have those, your revenue's going to be pretty much set for those for a certain period of time at least. And I don't know if it's going to be a game changer. I think it's more steady revenue potentially, especially if you get a longer contract. Right? With Bitcoin, you have these huge ups and downs, but it's very, very profitable for these miners, especially after the halving events where Bitcoin goes parabolic and, they make a boatload of money at that point. So with them making that boatload of money, could they do the same thing over the 4-year cycle with Bitcoin from their AI side of the business, right? And if they can't, then we'll have to obviously evaluate things. Okay, I think I am pretty much caught up, and thank you. Yep, thumbs up, everyone. Definitely helps me out, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Not expecting much on the side of things as far as what's going on tomorrow. I don't know if anybody's reporting tomorrow or not, but we'll take a look at it. If nobody's reporting, we'll take a look at the monthly production updates from all the miners and see how they all stacked up against each other. So we'll obviously give them the top miner for April, I guess you could say, award at that point. We'll do that, and then obviously once all the miners report their quarterly results, we'll run through the quarterly results as well to see which miners did the best in the quarterly results at that point as well. But that's probably going to be down the line here, probably next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. And then that's about it. Next Twitter Space is going to be on Saturday at 4 p.m. There's going to be, as the guy, the BTC mining guy has stated, it's going to be a, what do you call it? A match between Tyler, the CEO of Cypher, and Penny on there. I guess I'm going to be the referee, and he's going to be the announcer, I guess, Joe Rogan. So that should be fun there. We'll see who else we can get on there, obviously, on the Spaces. So if you want to tune into that, that would be great. That's 4 p.m. Central Standard Time as well. Okay. And then we'll do, I don't know if I'll do a video on Saturday or on Sunday. I might do it on Saturday before the Spaces. Just kind of catch up on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mines for the past week. Okay. That is it. We're done. Thank you so much. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes or so. So thank you so much for sticking around this long, and thank you so much for coming in. I hope you guys enjoyed these. I hope you guys learned something from them as well. And if you did, hit the like button, subscribe. That's all I ask. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great night. See you tomorrow. Bye.